What's up, everybody on YouTube? We're going to add in our friends over there on Facebook and on Twitter, and then we're going to get started. Give me just a second. All right. Bum, bum, bum. All right, and we are live on Twitter, and then now we're live on Facebook. All right. What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast, and no news, right? No, the news just keeps spiraling in, and it is just an absolute fireball, man. Every single time something new comes in, man, it has been an absolute treat. But welcome in. If it's your first time, welcome. If it's your second time, third time, fourth time, welcome to you as well. But if it is your first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to jump in. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday, so lots of Falcons discussion, especially right now with a new head coach, a new general manager, and as of today, an official president of football, Matt Ryan. We'll talk about that press conference. We'll dig into some of the, let's say, the coaching carousel that continues to spin, plus another big name that just got thrown into the mix. And then, as always, I'll take your questions. So make sure to drop those into the comments over there, down there, wherever they are for you, and I will get to them as I can throughout the show. But one quick reminder, Super Chats. Those are the best way to support me and to support this channel. So I really appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you guys for, first off, being here and listening and talking some Falcons football with me. But again, comments and group participation is always encouraged. And we like to dig into all of this. But I'll give you my takeaways. I wasn't able to be up there at Flowery Branch today. I had some other business stuff that I was taking care of. But I was following, of course, on the live stream. I wrote up a whole piece. You can go check that out at Falcons on SI. You can obviously on Twitter. I always tweet stuff out, so make sure to go follow me there if you're following on Twitter. Big thank you to you. But at GChapATL, that's the best place to stay up to date on all that. But if you're on Facebook, we post everything up there too, so make sure to follow it all over there. But no, I mean, it was the biggest news of the day. Shoot, man. Matt Ryan did a hell of a job. And I'm going to give you my impressions of this just overall. But quick shout out here, Michael Ronquillo, always in the chat, always having a good time, and I really appreciate you, buddy. Hit those thumbs up and subscribe to the Falcons Podcast on YouTube. Big thank you to you, Michael, and thank you again for being here. All right, so let's get into my takeaways. I have 4 big takeaways, and if you have yours, drop them into the comments, and of course, we can always discuss those. My overall impression, just in general, Matt seemed a little nervous. He seemed a little nervous, and I think it's because I think he doesn't all the way feel prepared for the position that he's in. It's a big job. It's a job that he's never done before. But I think it's one of those things where, do you know when you're trying to talk about how you're trying to equate things to something? He talked about, he was asked about his experience in, I don't know, managing whatever and being a team player, and he would talk about how he didn't always play quarterback, right? And he would always equate things to playing basketball growing up or something like that, just something random. And I've always found that that's something that people do when they're a little bit nervous, or maybe they feel a little underqualified, which is fine. I mean, and that's not an indictment. It's a reality. I mean, he's underqualified. He's never been an executive before. And now he's all of a sudden going to be the president of football for one of 32 teams, his former team. And the inexperience was clear, but he did settle in. I think as the press conference kind of went on, his kids were there, his family was there, and I think that there was, I think having them there as support was a good thing. Arthur Blank, of course, being up there to support him. Greg Beatles was there alongside of him, and I think that was very intentional, the way that those two were up there next to him, to make him feel a little bit more comfortable, to make him feel like he wasn't isolated and alone in front of folks. And he'll be that eventually, and he was that for 14 years here in Atlanta, but of course it's a different position where you can kind of hide behind the fact that you're not the guy who's making the big decisions. He's not going to be able to do that anymore. So the way that he gets more comfortable is going to be important. And again, I don't think that this is how it is behind the scenes. It's different when the lights are on and everyone's looking at you and asking you questions and needling and pushing you on things. I mean, the press conference was an hour too. It was a long press conference. And a lot was said, a lot was talked about, but ultimately, I mean, he gives fans a reason to be excited. I mean, it's something to draw them back in, and it is a risk. I mean, it is a risk, and I'm going to talk about this at one point with my biggest takeaway of this, but his legacy is directly tied to this now. And I think that's something that people have to keep in mind. Or I know that he definitely is, because that was his number one message was that he wants to win. And again, we'll talk about that in just a second. But that inexperience, I think it was pretty clear that he doesn't really have that kind of experience. But at the same time, I trust his ability to read people. I trust his football knowledge. I trust his ability to connect with coaches, to ask the right questions and to have people in the room alongside of him who are going to make those decisions. But it's a spot where he's got to be careful. And I think the organization also has to be careful, because when you're in these types of spots and you've never been there before, people can take advantage of you. And that's where I get worried if you get a really powerful head coach, not necessarily alluding to anybody necessarily. But if you get somebody in a position like that, in that position, then I think it could be a potential bad situation there. But ultimately, I trust Matt Ryan. I think he's going to do a really good job. I was excited to watch it. I was excited to follow in. And I mean, the brand of Matt Ryan is very clear. It gets very, very clear. The next big thing is that it was very clear that he wanted to separate himself from the position of head coach and general manager, right? I know there was a report that came out from the Chicago Sun Tribune, I believe it was, or the Chicago Sun Times. And I quote tweeted it, and you can go check it out on Twitter at GChapATL. And I also posted an article on it. And people seem very upset by the article. I'm not sure why people got quite so upset. It was just a report talking about how the Bears would be able to block the Falcons potentially if they so choose. And based off of the wording of, I guess, the way they announced the position, that's kind of what it came back to. And fans got upset. They said that I was doing clickbait or something like that. It's not clickbait. It wasn't clickbait. It's just a report. And it makes sense. It's the same thing as they would consider it a lateral move. I'm sure the Falcons would push back on that idea, because based off of the way that Matt described the position as just strictly being a general manager, it's the same thing as it always was, is what he said. And I mean, he said that he is not the one calling plays. He's not going to go pull a Phillip Rivers. He's not going to go down there into the huddle and try to tell people how to play the game. Or someone asked him directly if he was going to come in and support Michael Penix. And he asked, hey, are you going to come in and show him how to do things, show him how to do this and that, whatever? And he's like, no, that's not my job. I mean, it's my job to hire the right people to get a good quarterback, to hire a good coach who's then going to hire a good quarterback's coach who's going to come in and coach up Michael Penix and do his job in that capacity, right? It's not Matt's job to come in and go do all the little things, right? He's the guy at the end of the line. And they made that exceedingly clear. And I think that was also a kind of a reference to what I was talking about with the Ian Cunningham situation in Chicago. And again, it wasn't isolated with Cunningham. It could be theoretically extrapolated to mean a lot of different positions across the NFL. A lot of different teams could block them based off of the lateral move. So I think that's why they were clear that the general manager is the general manager. It is not an assistant general manager type of role. It's not a lateral move. It is a clear promotion. And it's a pushback to what that report was. And I saw that. At least that's the way that I saw it. But he may not be making all of these decisions, I guess, in the micro. But in the macro, he is leading the charge for this team. He is going to be the guy making the decisions. He is going to be the guy leading the discussion for the next head coach, leading the discussion for the next general manager. And I think that that's going to be important. And in his job, he said this several times, that his job to empower these people, because he talked a lot about, and like, I don't want to call him like an Arthur Blank-ism, I guess you could say, but like the collaboration, the collaborative effort, stuff like that, things that you would typically hear at an Arthur Blank press conference. You heard a lot of those words. And I mean, I think that's probably appropriate. I mean, it's very typical of what you would expect to hear at Flowery Branch. But I do like the idea that the collaboration is still going to exist in some capacity, but it's going to exist in a positive way and not micromanage every single decision. That's where I feel like the collaboration got toxic and bad with the last administration that was up at Flowery. The new situation with collaboration, I think, means something a little bit different. And people are going to make decisions. The general manager is going to make a decision. The coach is going to make his decision. And then they're going to report to Matt. And I think that's really just all there is to it. And they've said it about 7 ways till Sunday, but sometimes they need to say it as many times as they can because it is a novel thing for the Falcons organization. So it's something that's new and people are going to have to get used to it. But I do think that the clarity, the clear isolation of whose job is what, I think is going to be a very important aspect of this. And that's one spot where I think that Matt can do a good job. I think he can motivate. I think he can empower, and I think he can do a good job in that degree. All right, that's 2 in. So I gave you my overall impression of just my thoughts on Matt, and then the second one about how he's trying to clearly separate. I'm going to jump into some of these comments that I see are starting to roll in, just trying to get in because I have a tendency of getting behind on these, and I don't want to do that. Robert Stevens says, glad to have Matty Ice back, and the Falcons excited to see what the future holds. Rise up. That tends to be the general sentiment because, I mean, people love this guy. They love this guy, and rightfully so. I mean, I know several people who threw on their like a Matt Ryan jersey the moment that the guy got hired. The moment the news became official on Saturday, I knew several people who had it on, throwing on Falcons gear and everything else. People are excited because he symbolized the winningest portion of Falcons history. And it's not exactly Super Bowl laden and a bunch of division titles and everything else. You had 3 of them over a 14-year period, and you had several more playoff appearances. But ultimately, it's the best period in Falcons history, and that's what Matt Ryan is symbolic of. And I think that that's kind of what people are seeing, and that was the crux of my article that I wrote earlier today. And now, the general sentiment, people are excited, and I'm excited too. I have a lot of respect for Matt. Darth Magoo, nice name, says Falcons job, not top job, sadly, but a good one. Well, it's not a top job, and I'll tell you why. It's because you have your 4th head coach since 2020, and you're in the coaching cycle again. That's just a reality. A top job would be the one in Pittsburgh. A top job would be the one in Baltimore. A top job would be the one, I don't know, Los Angeles, whatever, the Rams. I mean, it is what you make of it. It becomes a top job because of the job that you do, right? And there are some toxic situations that are probably never going to be good really good jobs, like Cincinnati or Cleveland or something like that. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus necessarily. They just have a bad history of ownership that gets really involved and not in a good way, or maybe they don't support or whatever else. That's just the situation. I don't think that is the situation at Flowery. I mean, Arthur Blank wants to invest in this team. He wants to invest in his players. He wants to support his players, and they want to win. And Arthur Blank has been known to spend a lot of money to make sure that this team wins. And that's why it is a good job. But it's not going to be a top job until they consistently win. And they find a way to consistently do that. And you don't do that until you get good people in place that can consistently get you to that level. Matt said this in the press conference today. He said, effectively, you are what the people in your building turn you into, right? And it's not just the players. It's not just the guy who's taking snaps. It's not just the guy who is calling plays on offense, right? It's not just the guy who's getting sacks. It's not James Pierce. It's not those, and they're a major part of it. But it's also the nutrition guy. It's also the person who's cleaning up, doing the medical staff, or the person who's cleaning the fields after the game, the nutrition experts. Everybody has to be on the same page, and that is what determines the great organizations from the good ones and then the bad ones, right? And the ones who win are the ones who are all completely on the same page. Make no mistake, there's a reason the Green Bay Packers are known that way. There's a reason the Steelers are known that way. There's a reason these top-flight organizations, there's a reason that since Robert Kraft took over the Patriots, they consistently come back to the table and they consistently win, right? Good organizations do that. And the Falcons have a long way to go before they get to that kind of territory. But this is a big step, and I think it's a step in the right direction. Terry Clark says, at this point, Matt Ryan is a brand. I said that earlier. He is a brand in Atlanta that most folks respect. Glad the Falcons are aligning with it. Completely agree. And this is one of those spots, though, that I think that Matt Ryan is getting into dangerous territory because he is such a brand, because he is such a well-liked person and very positive as far as like his legacy and everything else. People look at him very fondly, especially the way that everything kind of fell by the wayside after he left. The moment he was traded, ish hit the fan, right? I mean, nothing seemed to work. You couldn't figure out the quarterback position. And I said this for many years when people were complaining about him, and people were complaining about him in 2016, 2017, talking about how he's not doing enough, talking about how he's whatever their excuses are. I know you're going to miss him when he's gone. And everybody has, because it's been a revolving door at the quarterback position. And that's where I say it's kind of a risk, because he can't hide behind just being a quarterback anymore. He is ultimately the decision maker. And when he was drafted in 2007 or 2008, the 2007 season was the worst in franchise history. It's one of the worst seasons that I can ever think of for any team, at least in my lifetime, right? And of course, I'm a little bit biased. I grew up here in Atlanta, and I was in the thick of it, right? And I mean, it is what it is. I'll admit that. But that was a bad year. That was a bad year, because you have Bobby Petrino up and leaving. You have your quarterback getting arrested. You have just a disaster at the quarterback position. And I mean, your team was terrible, and you were aligned to do one thing, and then obviously you weren't able to do it, and because your team was, look, doesn't matter. You draft Matt Ryan, you make a couple of free agency moves, you get Mike Smith in here, and the rest was history, right? And then it turns into the golden era of Falcons football, where before Matt was here, you didn't have a single winning season in consecutive years. It never happened. And Matt proceeded to win, I think it was 5 years in a row. He had a winning season to start his career here in Atlanta. That's what he became known as. He never got that championship, and that's what he's going to be trying to do. That is his number one goal here, is to go get a championship that eluded him when he was a player. But what happens if he doesn't get there? Because people remember him as the guy who pulled them out of the dirt in 2008, the guy who elevated and raised their floor every single season for 14 years. What happens if it doesn't work? I mean, you mess with a legacy like that. It is a risk. It is a risk. And I still think that people are going to look at him fondly, but what happens if he doesn't make a good hire? What happens if he doesn't do the X, Y, or Z? He's going to start getting some criticisms and blame from people who he normally wouldn't be getting that kind of thing from, So I think how he responds to that is going to be a very interesting thing, and only he knows, and only time will tell. Right? I mean, I'm positive on it. I'm positive about him. I have a lot of good things to say about the guy. And I think that, Arthur Blank talked about how Roger Goodell was saying nice things about him too. Right? So how all of this stuff evolved is going to be very interesting. But Arthur Blank did say his quote major job here was to win. Matt Ryan talked about how he went to CBS and he steps out of football, and how nothing was ever the same. And I get that. It was that sense of unfinished business, he called it. And he did say that this Falcons team is going to get there. He cited the offensive line talent. He cited the young defense, Bijan Robinson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are really good pieces here. And the thing that I really liked about it all is the one quote where he said, I don't want to butcher this, having no agenda and just wanting the best for this place is something that is very valuable. Wanting the very best for this place. And I think that that's something that's very important, because it's not somebody who's trying to do something for their own legacy. They're not trying to do something for themselves in this instance, right? He wants to win a championship and he wants to win, but he also wants to win it for this organization. And he's not going to do something that is brash to save his job. He's not going to do something that's brash, at least according to this comment. He's not going to do something like that to try and get a lot of attention, or maybe to go find a better job or whatever else. It's the way he said it. And I think that affinity and that loyalty to the organization is going to be something that fans are going to appreciate. And that's one thing they loved about him. I'm going to keep on rolling. So Gabriel Rogers says, when do you think they'll hire the GM and coach? If it's Kubiak, don't they have to wait until after the Seahawks are eliminated? Yes. So actually I have a whole blurb here. I don't want to mess any of this up, because the ins and outs, the intricacies, it can be complicated with coaches and at this time of year, because you have a lot of teams who are still in the playoffs and still kicking and doing stuff. So this is what I have here. So in-person interviews with assistants who are under contract. So like Clint Kubiak or Vance Joseph is another one, is the defensive coordinator for the Broncos, another person they've requested, another instance of that. But in-person interviews with assistants who are under contract with teams can begin on Monday, January 19th, unless those teams are still alive in the conference title games. So Clint Kubiak is eliminated. He can't talk to him right now. Alan Durd, you can't talk to him right now. He's the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks, and I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. However, Avero, the Panthers defensive coordinator, you can talk to him. You can talk to an Anthony Weaver because his team is not in the postseason, right? So they're not in the conference title games, or the division rounds that'd be conference title games. So that's going to be next week, but that's when in-person interviews happen. The deadline would then extend to January 26th for those teams, the teams who are in the conference title games, for when those teams are either eliminated from the playoffs or in the midst of their bye week before the Super Bowl. And those coaches are not permitted to interview in person during that bye week unless they have completed a virtual interview in January. I hope that makes sense. But GM, as far as timeline goes, they have not interviewed anybody for a general managership as of right now. And based off of the verbiage of Matt Ryan being labeled president of football, they technically don't have to interview for the role. They will. I would be very surprised if they don't. But it also tells me that I believe it's going to be Ian Cunningham. But they're trying to, Arthur Blank equated it to landing two planes at the same time, right? So you want to have them kind of in lockstep with one another. It's not like one's going to decide the other, like John Harbaugh's demanding to hire his own general manager, something like that. And maybe they're keeping it on the table for him. Maybe they are, and they're just not telling us that. But that's the way that he equated it. And ultimately, like, they have to be on the same page, and you kind of want to make a decision right around the same time. And I'd imagine you want to have that discussion at some point saying, how do these guys work together? How they don't have to be buddies. I think that was the exact quotes. They don't have to be friends, but they have to be able to work together, and they have to have the same collaborative vision. At least collaborative vision, not necessarily they're not going to work in collaboration per se, but it's going to be, the vision has to be pretty much the same. And they're not going to do that until they effectively have an idea of, I believe, who the head coach is going to be. And that's going to be coming in some time. And it helps on the general manager side because they don't have any competition for general manager. The Dolphins are the only other team who had a general managership open at the time. And because that role was filled, there's nobody else out there. And I don't expect any others to open up this season, at least during the cycle. And we did get a super chat. So of course, I'm always going to go to the super chats first. Big thank you, Dossier Gaming. There's the Tomlin question. I knew it was going to come at some point, and I will get into this absolutely. So let's just jump right in to the Mike Tomlin, Dossier Gaming. Big thank you. So he says, what would need to be given up to get Tomlin? I'm going to make a claim that I don't think a lot of people would necessarily agree with. I think he's a great coach. I think he was really good for the Steelers. He wasn't the problem in Pittsburgh. I think that's my general sentiment on that. But at the same time, that doesn't make him necessarily a really good coach for the Falcons. I think he would elevate the floor. I think he would do a lot of good things. But he is a little old school, right? He is somebody who's going to be very conservative. He's somebody who's going to kind of, he's not going to wow you, but he's also going to win games. He's going to get you to the playoffs. So he's going to kind of get you up and elevate your floor. But I think ultimately, I don't think he's going to win another Super Bowl. I don't think that he is. And maybe he will at some point. I just don't. My whole belief is that I think he peaked in the early 2010s, and then he wasn't able to get over the Brady hump. And credit to him, not a lot of people were. But I don't think he's a great fit in Atlanta. I ultimately don't. I don't think it's going to happen. It's also the fact that Mike Tomlin, I mean, he's under contract with the Steelers right now. So he retired. He was not fired. So that means that it would be a Sean Payton situation where he was under contract with the New Orleans Saints. And then after he was gone away for 2 years or something like that, they sent him a third-round pick, I believe is what it was. The Broncos did to go get him. And it worked out great for him. And he took 2 years away, and then he took his time away. And now he's doing really well. They're the number one overall seed, right? But Sean Payton's also a different type of coach than Mike Tomlin is. And I think Tomlin's a damn good coach. I think Tomlin is destined for the Hall of Fame, and he's going to do really big things. But as far as the timelines and the way things sync up, I just don't think he's ready to be a head coach. Right now, I think he wants to take a year away. I think he wants to get into television. I think that's been the common sentiment that I've seen from him. Maybe not from him, but about him. And that's kind of what the situation that I see with Tomlin. But I mean, if he does end up here, I mean, I will not complain about it necessarily. I just don't think he's going to win another Super Bowl. I just don't see a Super Bowl in his future. And I think that John Harbaugh could potentially get us to that level. But I also think John Harbaugh is more excited to coach right now. I think John Harbaugh is more tied to, I guess, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. I think John Harbaugh would elevate the Falcons more than Tomlin would. I think that's just what it comes back to. And that's just my opinion. But either way, I would sign up for, I know, here we go. Terry comes in and says, I'd sign up for 20 years of playoffs from Mike T. Yeah, I would absolutely sign up for it. I mean, if it gets you there, I just don't think he's going to get you to that next level. Michael Ronquillo comes back and says, Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for a new head coach after Mike Tomlin stepped down as the head coach today. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you, Michael. Yeah, and then there's your answer. So you have to wait until he is eliminated from the postseason. Extra Masters tickets. I wish, man. I'm closer to getting you a Waffle House meal than Masters tickets. If I want to just go full Atlanta, you got all the Atlanta stuff behind me and everything else. I go all in, man. I'm an Atlanta guy through and through. Share the Light 5190 says, hopefully Falcons get Clint Kubiak or Mike McDaniel or John Harbaugh or Tomlin or Mike McCarthy. I'm not big on Stefanski. Okay. That's a big net there. That's a pretty big net. And I think Stefanski's better than a lot of people give him credit for. I also believe that ultimately Mike McCarthy is better than a lot of people also give him credit for. Ironically, Mike McCarthy and John Harbaugh have a very, very similar record. It's just John Harbaugh played with had an MVP quarterback with for several years at the end, and I think that was the biggest difference there. But ultimately, they have the same number of division titles. They have the same number of Super Bowls as each other. They have a similar number of wins, I believe. Mike McCarthy is a damn good coach, and they're also the same age, right? I think 163, 164. I actually think Mike McCarthy's younger, I'm pretty sure, but he's a damn good coach, and he coaches a hell of an offense, right? It's just the difference is the MVP quarterback he leaned on was the one in Green Bay and not the one. So you just basically flip the quarterback timelines. But ultimately, I mean, Mike McCarthy would be a great coach. Mike McDaniel, I think, makes a ton of sense too. He has connections here in Atlanta. He's one who I think needs a bit of a image reset, right? I think he needs to go and go be an offensive coordinator and go wow some people for a little bit, and kind of see where he can go from there. The one that I said was going to make a lot of sense was Washington, but obviously David Blows filled that position already. Maybe he comes to Atlanta and fills that role. I mean, I could see him going out to go coach with Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers, man. I mean, I think that would make a ton of sense for Mike McDaniel. I ultimately think he might get a job as a head coach. If he does, it's going to be in Tennessee. I think Tennessee would make a lot of sense for him. Arizona might make a lot of sense for him, just because you have the young, exciting quarterback. And I don't think he's going to walk into a situation where he's directly tied to a situation with an uncertainty at the quarterback position again. I don't know that. I'm speculating on that. So naturally, you want to go with Kyler Murray, right? No, but Cam Ward is probably one of the exciting ones, and they're a team to watch. They're a bit of a dark horse there. In this whole mix, especially with John Harbaugh. I'd love Harbaugh, but Kubiak is still my top. I think Kubiak is still my top candidate as of right now, if it wasn't John Harbaugh. I'm really excited about the idea of Harbaugh, but at the same time, I'm starting to get the feeling he's going to New York. If he doesn't go to New York, I think Atlanta's his second choice. But Clint Kubiak is my second choice, and I think Clint Kubiak would be an exciting young coach. And at the same time, like, I know a lot of people are going to be upset about young coaches, and you get worried about not having somebody who's made these big decisions before. But at the same time, I mean, he's a damn good play caller, and all the great coaches. I mean, Liam Cohen is one like that. Ben Johnson's one like that. And Clint Kubiak feels like he's just the next really bright mind in this sport. And why wouldn't the Falcons want to get in on that? You know, I do think that at some point, Kubiak is going to get snatched up. He's going to get hired this cycle, and he would be hard-pressed not to go to Baltimore. I think if you get him with Lamar Jackson, that'd be a lot of fun. But I just think Clint Kubiak makes a lot of sense here in Atlanta. I think that that's probably the Falcons' best decision if it doesn't end up being John Harbaugh. And Harbaugh's one that I just think that would make a ton of sense in Atlanta just in general. But I mean, my big concern, I will say, and maybe I'm overthinking this a little bit, but if you have an Ian Cunningham, you have Matt Ryan, and then you have Clint Kubiak, there is a concern there that you have three guys who've never done it before at their respective positions, all in major positions of power, right? Am I alone in that? I mean, that concerns me just like a tiny bit, just a little bit. All right. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And if you get like a good assistant head coach for Kubiak, I think that would kind of alleviate some of that. You retain a Jeff Ulbrich in this instance. So he's had experience as an interim head coach, as an assistant head coach. I think there are ways around it on that side. And Ian Cunningham's sharp as attack, man. I think he'd come in here and he'd do a really good job. And look, the only way you learn is by doing. So I think I might be overreacting to that just a little bit. But either way, Anthony Weaver, that's an interesting one, Halsey. Anthony Weaver's one that does not get nearly enough attention. He was one of the first people that the Falcons hired or interviewed, excuse me. He was one of the first people that they interviewed. And forgive me, guys, my voice has been going back and forth all week. I don't know what's going on with it. Probably all this talking that I do. But Anthony Weaver's he's a good coach. He seems to be well respected across the league. He's gotten a lot of attention. Even though, I mean, the Dolphins didn't have like a fantastic defense necessarily, but statistically, but he did have him in a good spot far more often than not. And I think he'd be an interesting one just in general. Terry says head coach, HC's the coaches more than anything, which is in my opinion why Zach Robinson failed. You're not just responsible for scribbled pass routes and you're cubby. You're responsible for offensive line, running back, wide receiver, and tight end coaching. Yeah, of course. Your head coach touches every part of the organization. And that's why I like the idea of having a Tomlin if he did do that. I mean, and again, I would be fine with a Tomlin. I just think that his ceiling is capped. I think John Harbaugh can come down here and potentially get us a Super Bowl. And that's what this is all about. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, that's why you'd want an experienced head coach like that. You want to get somebody who can come in and give you top flight experience and elevate the people around him. And I think a lot of these other guys can do that. Stefanski is one. I know that a previous comment talked a little bit about how they don't want Stefanski. He's a 2-time coach of the year, guys. I mean, we're not talking like he's some scrub. Like, this isn't some guy who doesn't know what he's doing. He won 2 coaches of the year and then had a quarterback carousel. He had so many different guys starting at quarterback for him because most of them couldn't get the job done. And I don't think any of them were particularly good options, right? I mean, Deshaun Watson was an unmitigated disaster. And I think that for more reasons than just his injuries, right? I mean, it's not just because he popped his Achilles twice that the guy sucked. He had a lot going on, and it was a disaster from the start there for Deshaun Watson. And then after that, it was injuries, bad practice, bad quarterback play, just et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he still won coach of the year twice. He still got him to 2 playoff games and won one, and then they cut bait on Baker Mayfield foolishly. So I think Stefanski's a lot better than people give him credit for. The last 2 years have been kind of difficult. There's a reason that he immediately picked up so much interest. As soon as he got fired, people are like, hey, all right, cool. I'll take that. And it's similar to how I kind of feel about Robert Saleh. I mean, he got fired after being at the New York Jets. Do people freak out about him being fired by the New York Jets? No, because he got fired by the New York Jets. The Jets aren't exactly a poster child of making great decisions, right? So I think that's more what I equate that to. Share the Light says, nope, don't want anything from Carolina. Ew. Yeah, I don't think Avera's in the mix. They put a request in for him. Actually, 2 teams, I believe, now put a request in for him, giving him some experience. I don't know. I don't think he's actually a viable candidate at this point. Aldi says, what is Schaub doing? Maybe he can be a quarterback coach. I hear him on the radio sometimes. I don't know what he's doing. That's an interesting question. I want experience. That's my biggest thing. I just want some good experience, because if you're going to have a young head coach, which the more the days go on, and I just get the vibe that it's going to be Clint Kubiak. That's more what I'm feeling, just my gut right now, and I like to trust my gut. And if that's what it's going to be, I want to get as many experienced experienced coaches on staff as I can. It means I want to keep Jeff Ulbrich. I want to keep Dwayne Ledford, Nate Ollie, guys like that. I want to keep them around as best I can. Leo Mapstone says, hello, would they go after Tomlin since he stepped away from Pittsburgh? I mentioned it before. He's not technically available in the sense of the word. Falcons would have to trade assets to go get him. They would have to go send folks out, or not folks out, but send capital back. And the Falcons don't have draft capital. And I also don't think that Tomlin wants to be in coaching next year. I think he wants to step away for a little bit. I see some people are coming through. He's stepping away from football. Yeah, Steelers. Halsey says Steelers Super Bowls without a Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, Halsey, I'll challenge you on this too. Look at just about any quarterback or any team who wins Super Bowls and tell me if they have a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. There are not a lot of Super Bowls that have been won by teams without that quality of quarterback, or at least somebody who is borderline. You know, I mean, Nick Foles isn't the guy who's going to go win you Super Bowls, right? He did win that one game where he just went nuclear, right? That incredible playoff run that he went on. But again, that's an exception. It's not the rule. Generally, you have Hall of Fame quality guys who are playing in Super Bowls and getting winning Super Bowls. That's what it takes generally. But I know what you're saying. They've had a revolving door at the quarterback position, but at the same time, Tomlin is the guy who's going to raise your floor. He's going to be somebody who's going to do a really good job. He's a damn good coach. Players love him. Coaches love him. And there's a reason he has staffers who stay with him for freaking 20 years, right? There are people who are with him his entire career up there. There's a reason for that. And I have all the respect in the world for Mike Tomlin. Terry says he can make a ton from broadcasting for a year or two and get glazed over if he decided to return. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely something that can happen. The difference between him and Sean Payton is that Sean Payton was a douche. He just wasn't very nice. He was making kind of crass comments about people and just talking smack and whatever. I don't think that's in Tomlin's DNA. I don't think he's the same kind of guy. So I tend to agree he would actually get glazed over a little bit. Leo Mapstone just says, sorry, just tune in. No worries, man. Don't worry about it. Evan Cole says, so a big Chick-fil-A guy then. Yeah, I worked at Chick-fil-A, if you can imagine. My pleasure to serve you. Yeah, I definitely worked at Chick-fil-A. If you can absolutely believe that. Yeah, I definitely did. Terry says, can't believe we had Shanahan, McDaniel, and both LaFleurs on our offensive staff. Yeah, we also had Jeff Ulbrich and Raheem Morris and a lot of coaches, a lot of head coaches on that staff and guys who have been either interims or full-time head coaches. Yeah, that was a vaunted staff. And that's actually one of those things that Matt talked about today. One of the great abilities of a head coach. And this is something that Dan Quinn did pretty well. I mean, especially that year, I should say. But he talked about what he wants to see in a coach. And he said specifically he wants character. Because you want somebody who's going to bring people together, emotional stability, ability to connect the players, and someone who can build great staffs. And I think that's something that's just absolutely critical. You have to be able to build a good staff. And I think that's a superpower, I'd say, from Sean McVay that has been lost on a lot of people. It's the fact that guy has, and of course he's the mastermind, right? And people flock to him. Bright minds attract bright minds. And I think that's why Sean McVay would probably be my choice as the best coach in the NFL right now. Just because he can consistently turn over a great staff and then just replace them with more really good staffers, right? It's unbelievable that this guy has, he gets an offensive coordinator and then that guy gets a new head coaching gig within 2 or 3 years. He has a defensive coordinator and that guy gets a head coaching gig within 2 or 3 years. It's like the Saban rehabilitation program just for guys who are 32 years old and wear capri shorts, right? It gets It's a crazy situation what they have out there. But I mean, the guy can coach his ass off. And I mean, that's one of his underrated traits, I guess you could say. But he did say, I mean, he talked about, like, if someone asked him if he wanted to, like, specifically if he wanted an offensive coach or a defensive coach or whatever, and said if he would be partial to an offensive coach because he's a quarterback. And he said, no, it doesn't matter. Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football. He's down the road and he's a defensive coach. Right. So great coaches are just great coaches. And that's where he kind of lined up the things that he's looking for in a coach. Boy says, Clint's my number one easy. I agree. I think that he would be a damn good coach. Michael mentions, yeah, son of Gary Kubiak. Yes, he is. Good call. Terry Clark with a good point. So Shanahan and John Lynch were both new to their jobs when they got them. You're right. You're exactly right. And that's why it's not scaring me away. That's the biggest thing, right? I think the great character people, I think, are going to do a good job. And I think that Matt's a high character person, and I think Matt's very smart. And I think Matt's going to attract a coach who's going to do a good job. He's going to attract a general manager who's going to do a good job. And that's why I trust him. I talked about his inexperience. It matters. It definitely matters. But I don't think it's going to be ultimately a hindrance to his ability to do a good job and to get the Falcons where we expect them to be. I just over scrolled. Let's see. 10 Cam says, we just had Raheem Morris and Arthur Smith. It's funny how some fans act like these are too good for some of these coaches. I am not acting like I'm too good. I know you're not saying I'm acting too good. I'm not too good for anything. Not a damn thing. Like I said, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for Mike Tomlin. I think he would come in here and be a damn good coach if he had the chance. I also just don't think it's going to be realistic. I don't think the timelines are going to line up, and I don't think he's going to be coming here. I could be wrong, and ultimately, if he comes in here and the fresh start was the only thing he needed, great. I would be very celebratory for that, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that was my bigger point. I'd be very happy to get. I'd love to know what the Steelers fans have been going through for the last couple of years, right? Consistently getting 9-8, 10-7, or whatever. Consistently every single year. Shoot, man, we haven't experienced that in a very long time, right? I'm not too good for anything. The Falcons haven't been to the playoffs in 8 years. They haven't had a winning record in 8 years. Falcons are too good for a damn thing. No, definitely not. Kali says, common sentiment says, want somebody with experience. Some people say they want a coach with experience. Some say they don't want the quote retread head coach. Everybody has a different opinion on it. I don't think there's a one size fits all. I mean, not a lot of coaches turn out to be Sean McVay. Most don't. You know, Liam Cohen, where he comes out and he just explodes year one. Ben Johnson comes out and explodes year one. Mike McDaniel comes out and explodes year one. Doesn't always happen that way. Mike Smith was one back here for the Falcons, right? And sometimes there are other factors involved. The ball bounces your way a couple times and you just have a really bright offensive mind, or you have a really good quarterback or something else. But of course, there's context with all of this. But I think ultimately you get a good high character person. And I think that was what Matt's overarching comment was. Then you're going to give yourself a good chance to win. Boy says, why so high on Harbaugh and not Tomlin? I think that's an interesting. I don't know for sure. I think the biggest thing with the situation, and actually the next comment down, Kiri Rap. Apologize, I can't. Kiera P. That's what it is. All right, Kiera. Yeah, Kiera actually makes it. This is one of the big points, because you would have to send compensation because he retired. He wasn't fired. So that's a major one right there. And then on top of that, I don't think the timelines line up. I don't think that it's all going to work out. I don't think it's going to be coming in here. It's not that I don't think he's going to be a good coach. I think actually he could go to like a Green Bay or something like that. Should that job come open next year or something, then I think that would be a good situation for him. But I think he's a damn good coach, and I think he's gonna do a really good job. Keep on going through. Schaub played longer than Kubiak has existed. Schaub played a really long time. No, Schaub definitely played a really long time. I don't know what he's doing now. That's my only question. He could be in finance for all I know. Gabriel Rogers says, them blocking the Cowboys from Ulbrich makes me think they want Kubiak. Harbaugh would want his own guy. Maybe you would. Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I know that Harbaugh lost Mike McDaniel and Ulbrich is somebody who other coaching staffs want, other organizations want him. I would say that Harbaugh would be hard-pressed to find a better option than Jeff Ulbrich, right? I don't know why. I mean, his current defensive coordinator didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence. And he just lost his other one. So he's not exactly married to any singular guy. I don't think that this is necessarily true. But I do think that, I mean, I think they just really think highly of Jeff Ulbrich. And I think that's what it comes back to. It's not saying there's not causation here. It's just, there's just correlation is not causation, right? And I think they're just really high on Jeff Ulbrich, and that's where it stops. Terry Clark says Mike T was fired. The Rooneys are just all class and allowed him to step away with dignity, but he deserved that. No, he retired. He retired, and the verbiage matters here, Terry, because they would have said they parted, mutually agreed to part ways. That means you're fired. You mutually agreed to part ways. But the way that he did this means that they still have the rights to him. And that's why it matters. If he was fired, like John Harbaugh was fired, then whatever. Mutually agreed to part ways is the nice way of saying it, the one that you're alluding to. But he resigned, I guess you could say. But it doesn't clean him of his contract. That's the important thing. All right, so the last big thing here I do want to get into, and I'm going to go back through your comments. I'm going to go back through here. I get 10 games, the sound bites from the Ravens owner. He said some nasty crap, man. He whatever, man. I did see this. If anybody else missed it, go check it out. I try to keep this a clean podcast as best I can, but I can't reiterate or re-say what he said. But the latest on John Harbaugh, I do want to give this update. If anybody has specific comments that they want to jump in, make sure to hit the super chat, and I'll try to get to yours as quickly as I can. Otherwise, I'm going to try to get through some more of these comments before we finish up because my voice can't go too much longer. Giants and Falcons feel like they're the top two teams for him. The Titans, though, they're also in the mix, according to a report from The Athletic. Atlanta interviewed him on Monday. Turns out it was just a phone interview, which, again, that's common practice in this process. I saw some people up in New York media talking like as if the Falcons embellished it. No, I don't think that's what it was necessarily, but I think they really feel like it was what qualified as an interview. And that's kind of where it ends. But the Falcons, the Giants, and the Titans have reportedly all been in daily communication with Harbaugh, either him or his agent, Brian Harlan. The Giants specifically are going all in. Chris Mara, of course, he had lunch with him on Sunday, I believe, and then he went to his house afterwards. That's the big report, but of course, that's an old hat. The new thing is that Eli Manning and Brian Dable were among those who called Harbaugh to deliver scouting reports on Jackson Dart and really reinforce that. It's a little weird, the way that they're kind of going in to recruit this process. It feels very, I don't know, college football-esque, but ultimately I think the Giants, they've got a lot of salary cap. They've got a lot of flexibility. They're an interesting spot, and I think they're the favorite in the clubhouse right now. But the Titans, they've got a young quarterback in Cam Ward who's really talented. He's really exciting, showed some potential. And Harbaugh talks a lot about how he was going to be reviewing his film and like kind of looking over some things. But they also have a ton of salary cap. So I think the way that they're sort of framing their situation is, hey, if you want to come in here and do exactly what Vrabel did with the New England Patriots, where you have a young quarterback and you have some good pieces here that we can do some stuff with and a ton of salary cap, you add in the right pieces around Cam Ward and all of a sudden, bam, we're off to the moon, right? That's kind of the way that I think the Titans are kind of selling it, and that's why they're in the mix. But he's now spoken with every team that has an opening. Now, obviously, with not including the Steelers, but it's the Giants, Falcons, and Titans, I believe, up in this tier, with Giants potentially just a touch above. But the Miami Dolphins and the Cleveland Browns, they're also in the mix for him as well. Don't think that those are going to be working out. The Arizona Cardinals, I don't think are going to be working out there as well. With the formal interviews, those are going to be coming out later on this week. and we will go from there. But after that, it's the coaches that they've interviewed now. It's Kevin Stefanski, it's Clint Kubiak, it's Anthony Weaver, it's John Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel, and Aiden Durde, the Seahawks defensive coordinator. And then they have also requested Avero, the Panthers defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, Robert Saleh, and Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator. So they're in the mix with a lot of these guys. I expect a lot of this stuff to continue to evolve. I'd imagine that they got right back to work and they got back into interviews and everything else later on. So I would expect that we see another update from somebody because today was the first day that we could interview somebody who played the game on Sunday or on Saturday. So today's the first day that we can do that. And I'd expect that those reports are going to be coming out here in the coming days. Or shoot, probably even the coming hours if they haven't already. I'll do a quick glaze. I don't see one. All right. These things evolve seemingly every hour, every single hour. But nobody texted me about it, so I didn't hear anything. All right. All right, boy. Let me see. Evan Cole says, caddied for Harbaugh down in Augusta a couple years ago. He wound up giving me his putter and took a picture with me. I could cry if he somehow chose Atlanta. Now, that's a story. That's a hell of a story. I would be interested in hearing about this one. That's really cool. How about that? Yeah, wouldn't that be a cool reason? Cool reason to come check it out. Come over to a game here from Augusta. Kyle Lee says the Seattle of when he was a Saints, he didn't do anything. He was trash. I'm assuming you're talking about Kubiak here. Lest we forget, while the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints were healthy, the one period of time in that season where they were actually healthy and had their quarterback and Alvin Kamara and their offensive line and everything else. Go back and look at what those offenses did the first couple weeks of the season that year with Clint Kubiak. Just humor me. Go look at them and then come back and chat. They got smashed up by injuries, and then they ran into the Eagles, and then everything changed for them. And then the roster fell apart. But Clint Kubiak's a damn good coach. He knows how to call an offense. Yeah, Ten Cam says, I think Tomlin's taking a break. Yeah, I think we've pretty much cleared that at this point. Terry Clark says, saw that Josh Allen is the most productive quarterback in the postseason history. The guy killed at LSU. When does Joe Brady get a look? I'm actually surprised I haven't heard Joe Brady's name a lot. That was one that was on my hot board, is one that I kind of put it out there for him. I don't think that's going to be one that we're going to hear. I just haven't, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Reputations precede people. We've seen it before in the NFL where really talented or well thought of people on our end aren't necessarily thought of in the same way in their sphere. And I'm not saying that he is or isn't or whatever. I just don't know. I just know that he hasn't really been, I haven't heard his name a lot. But that's an interesting one. And I think that's one that you got to keep an eye on. And I wonder why that is. But either way, Michael Ronquillo says, great show, Garrett Chapman. Appreciate you, Michael. And big thank you to Dossier Gaming, always dropping in some super chats. Getting us started on the Mike Tomlin conversation, but big thank you to Dossier Gaming and everybody else who jumped into the podcast. I know my voice is about to go out, so I can't go too much longer. But remember, Scott is back in. He'll be back in tomorrow morning, so make sure to tune in for that show. We will be back on Thursday. Hopefully, my voice is doing me a couple more favors. And shoot, man, we might have a head coach. Probably not, but we may. You never know with how quickly this news comes out. All this John Harbaugh stuff seemingly evolves by the day. We'll do an emergency podcast if and when a head coach is hired. So make sure to set those subscriptions. Make sure to drop all that stuff. Oh, and big thank you to Gadabud coming in here quick right there at the buzzer. Hardest working man in HL Sports. We're going to have some fun later. Yeah, big shout out to Gadabud. I'm going to come on with him. We're going to come chop it up there a little bit later. So make sure to give Gadabud a follow. Big thank you, my man. Big thank you to you as well. But yeah. No, I mean, we'll do an emergency podcast as soon as a head coach is hired. So if and when that sort of happens, we'll get in there. Share the Light says, what zone are you from in Atlanta, Shoddy? I am from Buckhead. I grew up in the Buckhead area. I've lived in Atlanta my whole life. doing my thing, and I love it here. And I'm over here in Midtown now, so love living in Midtown. I'm right here in the thick of everything, and it's absolutely great. I love it. But yes, big thank you to all of you. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I see we had upwards of 150 people in this podcast on all platforms. So make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to support us in that way. And a big thank you to all of you. If you have not subscribed, make sure to do that. Give me a follow at GChapATL. That's the best place to stay up to date on everything that we have coming out. And this stuff, like I said, evolves by the day. So make sure to jump in and follow along. But my name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. This has been the Falcons Podcast. We'll see you again next time. Maybe with the head coach. We'll see. But till then, go Falcons.